You know, in life, we have lots of choices to make, and it's amazing probably how many choices that you've already made today. It's interesting how many of the choices that you made today you actually made before, a long time ago. For example, you've chosen to come to church. You probably chose to do that years ago, and you've kind of made it an custom to do that, and so it's a choice, but you choose today, this time, to come. I want to talk about what God gives to us in terms of choices today, because it impacts all of our lives. And I want to read from the book of Deuteronomy, because God had chosen a nation. Notice here, he chose an individual, Abraham, and from Abraham, he formed a nation, and this particular nation that we know as Israel, and then he brought them out of slavery into the promised land, and he told them that they had some choices to make. And this is where it gets interesting in terms of choices. We begin here in Deuteronomy, actually chapter 30, and we want to begin here in verse 15, and this is what he tells to the nation of Israel here in verse 15. See, which is to get, first of all, our attention. See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. For I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commands, decrees, and laws, and then you will live and increase. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess. But if your heart turns away and you are not obedient, and if you are drawn away to bow down to other gods and worship them, I declare to you this day that you will certainly be destroyed. You will not live long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. This day I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Now choose life so that you and your children may live, and that you may love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, and hold fast to him. For the Lord is your life, and he will give you many years in the land he swore to give to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now it sounds rather simple here. And when we think about choices that we have here, in the world today, we live in a world full of choices. Probably more choices than ever before. And if you don't believe that, take any child to Toys R Us, or the toy section at Walmart or Target or whatever, or go to the grocery store and see all the different cereals that are available to us in the land in which we live. We have all kinds of choices to make. And the choices that we make actually affect our lives in ways that we may not presume that they affect us in that way. And there is difficulty in making, quote, the right choice. And we can make right choices for all the wrong reasons, and we can make wrong choices for what we think are right reasons as well. And what is right to one person may not be right for another. So a choice that we make, for example, if you drink milk and you're lactose intolerant, that is not a good choice for you to make. I'm just using a simple physical example. For other people, it may work very well for them, and they don't have any complications with it. With that, though, there is a difficulty in terms of rightness. So exactly what is right? In the world today that you and I live in, we live in a world, and it's kind of choices looked at from a different perspective. We live in a world where people have rights. And I don't believe ever before have we had so many rights, quote unquote, available to mankind than we do in this world today. Because with every group, every age, every culture, every nation, every state, all of us have our, quote, rights. And it seems to continue to grow in terms of what the rights that we have, or we feel that we have. And people themselves, we also recognize that in terms of choices, people are different from one another. And so, again, in terms of cultures and people, there are differences in what we may choose. Now, we recognize, and it's a term that we use, that there is free moral agency, and that is the right to choose. We have the right to choose what we think. Now, what I want us to understand is how much our choices multiply. They multiply exponentially without God. You and I are going to have many, many more choices if there is no God. Now, when we look here in the book of Deuteronomy, and I want us to focus on this, basically God says there's only two choices. You have two. And with those two choices come blessings or they come cursings. They come life or come death. Now, it was complicated, for example, in the book of Judges, when they had judges who were using the law as God had directed them to use the law, the choices were fewer. But at the end of the book of Judges, it tells us this. In the nation of Israel, there were no judges, and therefore, it says, everybody did that which was right in their own eyes. So try to reason, for example, with a young child on whether or not they should have ice cream every night for supper, and they should have Jell-O for breakfast, and they should have candy for lunch. It's a little difficult to reason with them because they think that's good for them because it tastes good to them. And how did it come to taste good to them? Well, partly naturally, but then again, we develop taste habits. Every once in a while, I get a craving for Taco Bell taco. It's a craving. And you think, why is that? Well, way back in my life when Taco Bell tacos were 39 cents and I was just trying to survive, getting my family, and if we're going to eat out, we might go to Taco Bell, and I got kind of hooked on the hot taco sauce and all of that, and I craved that from time to time. It was a choice made way back then. Kind of a choice not of my choosing, but given bad situations or that, I made those choices, and still I have, like I say, every once in a while. And then, of course, if I do go and splurge and have that taco, I say, why did I do that? It wasn't that good. It was the memory that kind of made me think it was good. So, fundamentally, what we see here in Deuteronomy 30 and verse 15, again, is the foundation of only two choices, life and good, death and evil. Now, there's a restatement of this again in verse 19 of Deuteronomy. This day, and this is a historical statement. It's like, I want you to know. I'm going to record this because I'm calling heaven and earth. And because as we move through our choices, we tend to forget who made the choice, how that was made. So God is saying, as a matter of record, he says, this day I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you that I've set before you life and death. Now you say against us. Well, it's both for us to help us to see that you had the opportunity to choose life. You have an opportunity to choose death and life. Blessings and cursing. In all of this, we need to recognize some other things about the choices that we make.
The world today is a challenging environment for Christian believers and followers of Jesus Christ. Looking for answers? Grace Communion International local churches in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto offers a comforting environment for Christians in search of spiritual growth and development. Contact our local ministry. Attend our local GCI churches at the times listed on your screen.